Hello there! I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a battle master, always a wizard, and tonight I am joined by Syl Swordsong the Many Tails, a Paragon Wizard from Crystal Groves. Syl, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I've been looking forward to this ever since Dax dropped us in this group chat and started talking about your data mining around the wizard class. And I knew I had to have you on. So I'm super excited to bring you on the show tonight. I'm just so excited to dive in and talk about the wizard class because I think you and I have a lot of the same ideas about like optimizing wizard play, but we're looking at different angles. So I'm really hyped to get into this. First and most important question: how did you start your Amtgard career?
So originally, I started playing Amtgard. One of my friends had been away for some time, and they wanted to get back into the game. So originally, I was just kind of along just to, just to kind of check out the vibes, just kind of hang out. But then around Fall Coro of 2023, another one of my friends had just been knighted. Uh, and I got to be a part of the knighting and kind of, be at the Kingdom event and get to see everybody for the first time. And I kind of felt this sense of community that I really had never felt before. And it pretty much from that moment on, I knew I was like, I'm not going to be able to be normal about this. And then from there, I was like, I have to get my first class to level 6. I'm going to, make, as much attendance as I can. I was doing 2 park weekends pretty much for 3 months straight to get the credits up because it was 1 credit per week back then. At the time it was just park days were just a credit. Sometimes we get bonus credits, but back then it was just the one. So I would just do double park weekends, 3 months. Yule 2024 got my first level 6 as bard, and yeah, I've just been going since then. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy being a part of this game and this community.
So, what is your favorite kind of battle
For
game?
me, I don't know. It's probably not a very exciting take, but I'm pretty straightforward about like with battle games. Nothing beats a good capture the flag.
Mm,
Nothing beats a good ring the bell. Or like like a point hold. Like something like that. King of the Hill. I'm a big fan of those. The ones where it's just straightforward, no explanation. The champion just says, "All right, we're doing ring the bell," and we go, "Yeah." And then that's the game, and I enjoy those quite a lot. They're easy to pick up,
hmm
easy to jump in.
Quick and
Big
easy.
fan of
I like
those.
it.
Yes.
Okay. What do you think the main job or responsibility of a wizard is on the battlefield?
On the battlefield, it's kind of interesting because kind of how other classes operate. There's kind of this idea of like there's a zone of influence that caster classes are able to exert on the field. Kind of like how in martial theory you have A range, B range, and C range. You can apply the same model to spellcasters as well. So usually you're trying to use your verbal magic to control your B range, which would be 20 feet. Your A range is 5 feet. You'd control it with equipment, and then your C range is 50 feet. You do stuff extension, suppress aura, stuff like that. And so other classes like Bard, they kind of focus on things where it's like you're trying to control that space, you're trying to create a zone that you keep players out of. Wizard is kind of different in that it is more of a duelist kind of class.
Mm,
It's really good at specializing in specific things. You kind of find what your bread and butter for your list is going to be, and then you can kind of supplement it with different tools. And the way you solve problems on the field is a lot more direct. Like if Bard, for example, thinks in circles, like in zones like that,
mm.
Wizard operates a lot more in straight lines, if that makes any sense. Instead of keeping players out of ranges or using effects that kind of you have access to enchantments, but boosting up other players like healer and druid do. Instead, your problem solving is very much you can kind of target exactly where you need the interaction to go, and then Wizard's toolkit will support you in that endeavor. You have a lot of different options across a lot of different schools to cover different matchups that allow you to uh, effectively problem solve as the game develops. You can kind of see where it changes, and you try to build your list out in such a way that you'll have an option available given whatever circumstances you find as the situation on the battlefield changes.
Okay. So, why did you start playing wizard?
It's gonna sound a little silly. Well, maybe it won't. Evoker. I saw some people at Park playing Evoker, and I was like, wow, that seems really cool and really fun. And then I was like, I gotta level Wizard now. This was like right after I leveled Scout. But then I was just getting into my next class, and I saw some of my friends at Park playing Evoker, and I was like, this seems awesome. I want in on this. So I leveled up Wizard specifically to play Evoker. around that time, once I was finally getting there to level 6 wizard, was around the time that I had got my Paragon Bard. And I was like, well, now I can, move on to, I was like, okay, well, now I got to pick a different class, right, to start looking into. So then I kind of decided that was the pivot point where I was like, okay, I'm going to try to, follow the Archmage path a little bit. And so then I started exploring more options of wizard and started doing, getting more into Battle Mage, doing Warlock stuff. But originally, it all comes back to Evoker. That archetype is so much fun. It is very different from the normal playstyle of Amtgard spellcasting, but it's so fun. You're playing this like mini game where now, instead of having your list of verbals and things like that, instead now you get to just throw stuff. You got fireball, you got lightning bolt. You can just throw them. You don't even need to say the incantation. All you got to do, just say its name. The spell ball is yours to cast, and it's so much fun. It's the best. I love Evoker.
It's a fantastic ability. I've been recently playing around more with Evoker, but having a lot of fun with it. So, what do you think makes Wizard stand out from the other casters and makes it unique?
I think a lot of it kind of has to do with the way that the spell lists are built. A lot of the time I like to say that Wizard is very much a class of opportunity costs and diminishing marginal utility. This is, I guess it's applicable to the other caster classes too, but it's a theory that I really delved into with Wizard specifically, where basically the main idea is that whenever you build your spell list and you're picking your spells for your wizard spell list, this is mostly Battle Mage stuff because I did a lot of Battle Mage, but it's true of other stuff too. But when you're building a spell list, there's this idea of whenever you choose to invest a spell point in an ability, there is something, the next best thing. The opportunity cost is the next best thing you could have invested that spell point into. It could be striking on different spell schools. It could be different utility spells. It could be, it could be spell balls versus Battle Mage, stuff like that. And so Wizard is really interesting. And a lot of the cool part about Wizard is kind of theory craft. It's kind of more on the on paper side of things, where it's like when you're constructing your spell list, it's like, what am I giving up for this investment here? And you come to find that at a certain point, as you invest spell points into abilities, as you add more and more of an instance of an ability, it reaches a point where the perceived utility output of your spell points, it begins to diminish. It'll continue increasing, it'll keep making positive value for you, but at a decreasing rate, if that makes any sense. So at a certain point, you will find that instead of taking like the 5th, the 6th of something, instead, you could, consider taking that point and putting it into something else. And that's where point splashes are really good for Wizard. Stuff like Banish, stuff like Ravage Wounding. There's these very value-dense point combinations that you can add to your list that drastically increase your utility on the field, while at the same time doing it for the most efficient point cost possible. And I think an important part of the Wizard journey that I encourage players to do a lot of the time is to kind of explore that list building side of things and the theory craft, and really get in on because ultimately there is no number to assign to it. There's not like a numerical objective truth to list building. There is never an objective truth to list building. It's very subjective in nature. So I always encourage people, the thing that makes Wizard so cool is as you explore the class, you try out the different parts of your toolkit, and you can see where instead of taking more of something, you can invest it in different abilities that will increase your functionality on the battlefield instead of, just having more of the one thing. And you eventually get to these lists where it does what you want it to do, and it'll look different for everybody, but it does what you want it to do, and it does it in the most point efficient way possible. And getting to see people, see players go through that journey and kind of dial in their spell list, right? They find their preferred play style, and getting to see, how the points shake out, where eventually, you kind of have the list, right? You find your bread and butter, and it's as efficient as you can make it. You maximize your utility per spell point. And that's a really rewarding experience. And I think that's something it's not super, super exclusive to Wizard, but it's a pretty big part of the Wizard journey, I would say. I think that's probably my favorite part about it, is the list building.
Right. So Which spell do you like the best?
For wizard, it's a tough choice. Wizard spells, they're all pretty cool. I gotta say, lightning bolt has really grown on me in recent times. So yeah. So like fireball. Originally, I was a fireball fan. Originally, I was like fireball, the best. Wounds kill and it blows up shields and stuff. But after getting to do more testing with it and playing as other martial classes, you see the matchups where lightning bolt being able to stop barbarians with an engulfing effect, being a flame school spell in addition to being a force bolt and an engulfing stop, kind of gives lightning bolt where it lacks in the kind of like wounds kill potential that a fireball has. Instead, now it's like you can use it for crowd control. You can stop players with it. You can target barbarians with it, which is nice because a lot of the time they have answers to your ranged options and you can't ice ball them. So lightning bolt, I don't know, the utility of that spell's really grown on me. I don't usually take spell balls anymore these days. I'm usually just playing Battle Mage myself. But in the time that I played a lot of spell balls, it's really good. I really, really, really like lightning bolt.
Which spell do you like the least?
The least. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna pick one that sounds kind of wild, but hear me out, right?
Okay.
Finger of Death.
Okay. I think I know why, but elaborate.
So Finger of Death, it's a really strong spell. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a really strong spell. It kills you. You target a player, you call upon death to smite them. They die, right? And it's Death School, so it hits anti-paladin unless they're a corruptor. It hits not raging barbarians if they're not enraged. So it's really good. Like it'll get what you need done. If you just need somebody gone, it works. But it kind of when you're assessing the value trade in list building, again, which is kind of the thing that I really spent a lot of time thinking about, it causes it is a kill you spell. Like it kills you, but at the same time, it's also points where you're sinking an opportunity cost that could have been instead invested in either more list utility, stuff like banish splashes, like splashing banish or ravage or whatever, or it could be more engine, right? It can go into your innates, it can go into spell balls if you're archetypeless, it can go into all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of like, and spell balls are unlimited, so you can pick them up as many times as you want. So it's kind of like it's the same kind of thing as Call Lightning is to Druid, where it's like it's a very powerful spell, very good spell, and players use it very effectively at our kingdom a lot, and it's a really good spell. But the reason that personally I'm not the biggest fan of it is because instead it's points that it does what it says on the tin, but it could also be put somewhere else. It could be more engine, and it could kind of be things to kind of keep the wheels turning on your spell list during a longer battle game. So for that, I would say Finger of Death. But that, I don't know, that might be a slightly hotter take.
Hey, this is the Hot Takes Wizard show. Let's go. What is a non-meta aspect of the wizard class that you really enjoy?
I really enjoy wizard being a class that's all about specialization. I really enjoy because you can always do the pile of icy blast and shatter, and it has its place in the format, and it there's reasons why it exists in the format and how it's set up. But one of the fun parts about Wizard is you can take all that potential to specialize in your different abilities, and you can put that anywhere. One of my favorite things to do at Park nowadays is go on Experience Shatter Weapon, Experience Suppress Aura, and you kind of create lists like that where it's you're destroying people's weapons, you're doing suppression, and you can really kind of pick a direction and go. I've seen players be successful on this where they're like, I'm gonna play Warlock and I'm gonna take 20 heat weapons per life, and it works. And you get your pyrotechnics and your heat weapons, and you can do all sorts of stuff like that. So I think that while it's definitely it's a tough contender with Icy Blast Shatter. Generally the conventional build is at a kingdom level generally is to do Icy Blast kind of things. But the fact that you can kind of take that specialization aspect of Wizard and put it into pretty much pick an avenue and go, right? You could do, it could be Shatter Weapon. Basically, wherever you choose to put your experience, wherever you choose to, pick up spell balls and stuff like that, on your spell list, you can just run with it. and you can pretty much make anything work. Wizard has access to. I've seen there was a list that I really enjoyed from a friend of mine at a Kingdom event where he was playing just Mend Wizard, and it was just Mend. It was Greater Mend, and it was just putting stuff back together, and it was really cool, and it was working. I mean, stuff was getting broken, and it was being mended, and I think that's awesome. And I think that Wizard kind of has the access to all of it, and I think that's probably, if we're talking about getting away from kind of conventional builds, it's got all sorts of options for you. I love it.
Yeah. What do you think is the most challenging part of playing Wizard?
Wizard, a lot of it, kind of the hard part about, I don't know, I guess it's kind of challenging because there's kind of an upfront, there's like kind of a learning curve to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of a hill you have to get over at the beginning where it's like, and it's something that comes with as you play more battle games and you experience, where it's like, you learn people, you learn people's names, you see, there's this kind of general battle game sense that you get a great opportunity to sharpen on Wizard because you're looking for specific players and specific targets for your spells. You kind of get this kind of you have to get into like the mentality of being able to scan the field, right? You see, in your peripheral vision, you see who's in, like, what classes are in the enemy respawn. You see who's on the field, what lane you're going to, like what zone on the field you're headed to. You see your targets there, and Wizard, it kind of works, kind of like a Turing machine, like the old computer.
Yeah.
Where it's like a tape, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you see the board, as you look at the other players on the field, and you see who's in respawn, you see who's on your side and who's on the opposing side, and you see all their classes, you see the matchup chart, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can you build this action priority queue almost, where it's like you see, I need to do A and B and C, right? But the difficult part about that is that there were certain shifts in the battle game environment during the fight. Since Amtgard is such a dynamic system, there will be times where things that you have queued up in your action priority will drop off or get added on. So kind of you kind of build this sense of like scanning the field, see what you need to do, kind of build that kind of, build that tape, right? Where do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do? What actions are you executing in what order? Dispel this player, heat this weapon, right? And then you have to be ready to not fully commit to it at all times, because sometimes you'll see a player will die. You'll see your teammates are backing. They need to get out out of a fight or something. Or someone has been taken offline by an ice ball, an icy blast. Frontline abilities like that. So kind of part of the challenge, and I think is really a fun part of the Wizard class as well, is kind of that getting into that mindset of being able to, and this is true, again, I'm going to say this a lot, but this is true of pretty much every class in the game, but kind of being able to build out that action queue and kind of see what actions you need to commit, and then kind of execute on that and be able to be flexible that if something were to change, you're able to kind of drop out sections of what your game plan is and be able to put in new things to do. And it's constantly changing, and it's fluid and dynamic, and that's what makes Amtgard such an awesome system with its verbal magic that sets it apart from other games, is that kind of that ability to to keep things moving fluidly. So yeah, I'd say that it's a little challenging at first, but once you get over that hill, it's tremendously fun. You can kind of build out that foundation of battle game knowledge. And Wizard is a great class to kind of build that foundation as a player, new or experienced. Getting able to reinforce your foundations of general battle game theory by applying the Wizard kit to it. So Wizard's problem solving, it's very cool, and it's a fun challenge, I would say.
All right. Could you share with us a fun story of a time you were playing Wizard and something cool happened?
I've got a pretty good one that comes to mind. There was I think it was Fall Coro last year. We were doing a battle game. It wasn't Life Pool. It was for the quest for the game, for the event. And basically, I believe this was the Haunted Mansion theme one. We were playing on the side of the ghosts in the Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
And basically, the attacking team was trying to capture objectives. And once they captured all the objectives, everybody on the side of the ghosts in the Haunted Mansion that were defending those points they go down to it becomes their last life. They become shattered. If all the points are captured, all the defending players are shattered when they die.
Okay.
So it went pretty long. It was a pretty long game, and I was playing Warlock. And by the end, I was playing Warlock Battle Mage because this is not too long after they changed the Ravage incantation, which made Warlock Battle Mage super super playable.
Yes.
So I was playing Warlock Battle Mage, and I was basically out of gas. I could charge my wounding, but it was kind of in a rough spot. I was pretty much burnt out. We were trying to do last hold pretty much. It was like time or we all die on our last life is basically how the game would end. So we're on last hold. It's getting to be the end. I'm running out of stuff. All I have in my pocket is 2 Ravages, pretty much. And
Okay.
basically, I was doing my best to try to hold down the entire right side of the battlefield, the entire right lane, by just half casting Ravage at people and like trying to see if they respect it. Ravage is a pretty good spell. There's no duration on the fragile.
Yeah.
So if it sticks until they get released, they're fragile. So pretty much it was just the last like minute and a half, 2 minutes of the game was me just half casting Ravage. The opposing team doesn't know that I don't have the payoff to this combo. I can't kill anybody with this. I have a short sword. Or no, sorry, I was playing Magic Staff. I didn't even have a short sword. I could not kill anybody with this. So I was pointing the Magic Staff at people and shouting Ravage and half casting Ravage at them. And they would keep ranging themselves out to dodge the Ravage. And then the game ended. We succeeded. I believe we succeeded last hold. I can't remember. I usually forget how the games end. But we had a really solid hold at the end of the battle game on just Ravage, no spells. I'm out of per lives. You know, our resto players are dead. Or just casting Ravage. The Ravage incantation is huge. It's so good. That spell went from being, my friends and I had developed this thing we called rhythm game theory for practicing incantations.
Okay.
To specifically to make incantations like Ravage, the old Ravage, playable.
Okay.
And
what does that sound like?
Okay, so rhythm game theory, basically, it originally started as we wanted to get Silver Tongue to work. This was originally a bard tech.
Okay.
The issue was that, you know, the seething sea ceaseth, and thus the seething sea sufficeth us. That was the old incant. And it was rough, and it was basically unplayable. But we were thinking about it, and I used to be a band kid, so I kind of have percussion brainworms.
Okay.
So for me, I was like, well, if we can subdivide it into big beats and little beats, stressed and unstressed syllables, if you can get it to a rhythm, you can practice it with a metronome. You can start slow and increase your diction gradually to get it into a cleaner incantation. So what we settled on was the seething sea ceaseth, and thus the seething sea sufficeth, thus the seething sea ceaseth, and thus. So, and then you can practice that slow, and if you can practice it slow, you can get it fast. So we started doing that for Ravage, and Ravage is a weird one because I tried to figure out how it would divide up in like musical rhythm terms, and I think it came out to like a bar of 11/8. It was like super weird because like death shall ravage thy flesh and make thee fragile. Death shall ravage thy flesh and make thee fragile. And that was rough. You could do it. You could practice it and make it almost playable, but it was rough.
The trick is to make fragile 3 syllables instead of 2.
Yeah, because you roll one into the other.
Death shall ravage thy flesh and make thee fragile. So if you purposefully say fragile in a weird way, it makes the whole thing feel better.
It's true. That was a mouthful with an incant. Death School spells are generally kind of rough because a lot of Death School spells don't have any kind of like consonants to latch onto because death, doesn't have like a. There's no plosive sound or anything to latch onto to like kind of mark your pace. So it just kind of, it's kind of bleh, just kind of falls out of your mouth. But yeah, the Ravage incantation was huge. It was
it's death shall make thee fragile. That's so much less.
3 times thus, and they shall be made fragile. It's so good.
So good.
All right, that was a bit off topic, but I really
I'm on board for this.
And then they changed all the incants that we developed that theory for. So you can do it with other stuff, but really all the ones that we had issues with in our belt line, most of them are changed now. So none of them. It doesn't really matter anymore.
You can use that on anything, though. And this is something I've tried to, like, teach my apprentices, is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And you don't get to, like, rapid dispel someone and fall over all of your word. But if you practice slow dispel and get the
Yeah.
like, I call it the mouth feel. If you get the mouth
Yeah.
feel down, like by my power, I dispel that magic, and you practice that slow paced incant, and then it's by my power to spell that magic, by my power to spell that magic. You get that fast because your mouth is
Yeah.
used to. You're just changing the frequency of the wave instead of the instead of trying to be fast, or
Yeah.
your body knows how to do the thing already because you've practiced it slow.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and you know you get it if you push it out. You can do the slow cast. You know, everyone's always worried about speed casting. I've gotten way more value out of like big, loud, slow casting.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's tricky if you stumble, so you kind of have to, be confident in that cast.
Well, you
I've
can
actually got
get.
another good exercise for it too. My
Mhm.
friends and I used to do for getting incants cleaner like that, or specifically for the purpose of doing chain casts like that across multiple players.
Mm.
Where basically the exercise is when you're in the car, right? You're driving to park, right?
Mhm.
What you do is imagine somebody you normally see at park.
Mhm.
Think about what class they normally play, what they're immune to generally.
Mhm.
What they usually play, or like what they're generally immune to, and then practice casting a spell out loud at them in the car on your way
Yes.
to work. Right? You think of a player, what they play, you cast a spell at them, and then you do it for a different. Think of a different player, right? Someone just or really just whatever, or practice doing the two identifier rule or something like that, right?
If you do the
And
two
just kind of
identifier with every class and you have a plan for every class,
yeah.
you know,
It becomes automatic. You can start chaining them together too. Once you start doing it slowly, as you get more comfortable with that kind of going like player, spell, generally, and it's a something that you'll start to as you start to see the battlefield more, you can kind of like pick up where like
right.
who's playing what and what they're immune to. But after a while, once you start getting comfortable doing like one-offs, just like getting used to saying the words, right? Then you
Mhm.
can start kind of tying them together, right? So then it's like all of a sudden it's like so and so, so and so shoves, so and so wounding, so and so
Mhm.
dispel. You can just practice, just do as many as you can think of off the top of your head. Like don't spend too long trying to like, kind of think too hard about who and what really, or just like two identifiers or something like that. Just
Mhm.
kind of as just kind of start slow but get faster. Kind of go like okay, player spell that they're not immune to, and get into that flow of kind of being able to like connect all of the cast, and that's how you get those like really high action kind of chain casts in like kingdom fields and stuff like that. As you practice that and you get used to saying everybody's name and you get used to what they're playing and stuff like that, all of a sudden it's like player spell, player spell, player
Mhm.
spell. And that's a great way to practice it, is just get used to saying the words out loud in a kind of no stakes environment, and kind of bring it up as you get more comfortable with it. And then once you're ready to apply that at park, at kingdom, or wherever, all of a sudden it's like it becomes it's so much easier, it becomes way more efficient, and you can kind of see the enemy players, and you can kind of again create that chain of action, and then the speed at which you're able to complete all of the things that you're aiming to do in this interaction, you can all of a sudden do them one after the other very, very quickly.
Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit now, and we're gonna talk specifically about the four archetypes. So,
Eh,
I'm which archetype is your favorite? We'll start with that one.
I'm a big Battle Mage fan. I
Battle Mage is
love Battle
great.
Mage.
So
Unlimited Ambulant is absolutely diabolical.
it's so
Uh,
good.
it's
Of
it's
all the
real
archetypes
strong.
that give you extra meta magic, it's the strongest and most fun.
Trading your ice ball to basically be able to go anywhere is really powerful. It's a really powerful. It's a really powerful ability.
How much Battle Mage have you played in the last like 2 years?
The last, uh, probably most of Wizard. I did spend time working on the other archetypes.
Okay.
When I was studying Wizard specifically, I made sure to take time to go through all the archetypes. I worked through archetype lists.
Hmm.
I worked through Evoker and had a lot of fun. I played some Warlock. But Battle Mage is kind of the one that's like stuck with me. Battle Mage is one that I can just kind of like throw on the Wizard sash and like
Yeah.
kind of just go out there and do. So it's the one I'm the most practiced at. But I think all the other ones are quite good as well. But as far as time wise, 1,000% it's on Battle Mage.
Once you've memorized all your Battle Mage spells, It has the least prep time.
It's true. You can just put on a sash and go.
Yeah.
You don't even need a equipment really. I mean, I usually take a single short. I always like to say whenever people ask about spell lists, I always like to say that single short is the strongest spell, which in a sense is like it kind of has some basis in truth because when you're thinking about your casting ranges, that A, that B, that C range, and how your different abilities let you control those ranges, your A range being 5 feet is generally a place where only touch spells and your equipment are kind of the two big things that interact there. So just having a short sword, even if you're not like, like super intent on, fighting people with it, just having the reach of a short sword or just having access in your kit to be able to fight somebody if it comes down to it, all of a sudden it gives you way more projection over your A range. All of a sudden, it's at least worth thinking twice about approaching you on the grounds that you actually have a means to fight. If you have a dagger, it's like also kind of true, but short sword gives you enough reach that it's like, okay, we're having a proper like ditch fight, right? Like, this is a straight up like, even at, bare minimum, it's like militia at that point. At that range, you're not really getting any verbals to happen. Generally, unless you're really, really proactive with ambulant wounding or something. Taking a short is really, really good.
Mileage may vary on the short sword.
Yeah.
I find it is most useful for blocking arrows of all things.
Also true. It is blessing against arrow that you can mend. And that's worst case, because at best case you're able to as long as you're able to kind of project a level of confidence that you are willing to fight to remain in control of that 5-foot range, that already does so much for you. Even if you're still practicing, like the martial fighting aspect of single short, or it could be long sword, it could a wizard doesn't get shields unfortunately, but
Would be too
with
strong.
short, with long, it would be very good. Or you play magic staff and dagger or something. As long as you have it in your kit available to you and you're able to kind of project that willingness to defend your space if they choose to try to break through your B range to attack you, then it does a lot. Even if at worst it's just blessing against arrows and something to point at somebody to indicate that you're casting a spell at them. Short sword does a lot.
I would agree with you. As far as Battle Mage goes, what are the big drawbacks for Battle Mage?
Battle Mage, the rough one is losing access to your spell balls. Spell balls are unlimited. You have access to their effects as many times as you're willing to pick them up during a game. Big one is Ice Ball. Engulfing Frozen is kind of a really messed up ability. Some players it doesn't work against because now you have Guardian, right? You have they have Imbue Shield on Paladin. Barbarian is immune to it and stuff like that. But losing access to that axis of your list build is not. It's a pretty heavy trade, but if you're already not super keen on playing spell balls, then that's kind of a pretty easy sacrifice to make. For me, I really love spell balls. I love Evoker. I love playing spell balls, but I fielded it but one time at a Kingdom event, and after having to go downrange to pick up all my spell balls again after a battle game or during the game while I'm dead, I was like, I'm not doing this again. So, and some people really enjoy it, and that's awesome. But for me, it's like you lose access to that part of your spell list. But if you're not really pressed about it, then it's a pretty reasonable trade.
How can you abuse Battle Mage to its maximum potential?
Ambulant everything. It's really nice because Ambulant kind of gives you that kind of fluid motion, that kind of the ability to get where you need to go as you're making plans on what spells you need to cast, who you need to be casting on, what objectives you need to complete, and how you're going to... Ultimately, your goal is to clear space for the front line to advance to the objective. So it kind of... Unlimited Ambulant gives you access to this kind of whole new thing where now, instead of having to choose where to commit your 2 per life Ambulant, which some classes it's easier than others, with like Bard, you can like ambulant songs to do a, kind of a dynamic pivot in your immunities, as you reposition, without losing tempo. You could do, ambulant enchantments on Druid and stuff like that. But for Wizard, everything is ambulant with Battle Mage. So pretty much you're able to, as you're thinking on the fly, kind of making those decisions, those micro decisions as you advance the macro game. It gives you the ability to be wherever you want to be, and that's really strong. Another thing that's like pretty strong that I think is really neat is using Ambulant to start casting a spell at a respawn. There have been Kingdom Fields where, because when you're dead, usually respawns are longer on larger fields. In Kingdom Fields, usually we do like 60 seconds or something like that, usually, to that effect. So you kind of have a little bit of time. Assuming you're going to respawn normally and there's not a res bot pulling you back in, you have time to think about it. And you have unlimited ambulance, so it's not a waste of resources to use Ambulant.
Right.
So what you can do is while you're sitting in respawn, you can kind of since when you're in respawn, generally you have one of the largest views of the field. You can basically see everything. Who's doing what, who is where, what objectives are going on, who's pushing, who's defending, where are your key targets. So you get a lot of time, and you sit in respawn and you can kind of pick out, it's like, okay, I see that this lane is strong, or I see that, this lane over here is weakened perhaps. And I want to support this weakened lane or something. And then you see the players over there and you see, okay, I see this player over here. This is a key target, that I should try to, do something to try to, get them offline so your front line can advance and kind of reinforce the lane. And then Ambulant gives you the ability to execute on that incredibly efficiently. The instant you respawn, the second you step out of Nirvana, the second you step off the respawn point, it's Ambulant as loud as you can. Ambulant, start casting a spell at somebody.
Yeah.
Wave your sword. You're shout as loud as you can. Make a bunch of noise. Run straight in there, and basically by the time you get there, it either lands or they see this wall of force advancing out of your respawn, casting Finger of Death at Mach 40, and it's like, okay, we gotta get out of here. You know what I mean? So Ambulant kind of opens all these avenues to you where that's not even an investment. Like that doesn't require anything. The Ambulant, the starting the incant is absolutely free. Battle Mage just gave you all that flexibility for nothing. It's so good.
Absolutely. And it's such a good archetype that it really makes the other archetypes kind of pale in comparison, even though they're pretty decent archetypes. Like,
I like all the other ones too. I think the other ones, the trades are a little heavier. Trading spell balls, if you don't like spell balls, trading spell balls is easy. But if you are doing something like Warlock or something like that.
Well, let's talk about Warlock. So anyone who doesn't know, Warlock doubles death and flame verbals, but you can't take any verbals outside of flame and death. It's a rough trade.
It drops a lot of key players. It drops Dispel is the big one.
It loses Dispel and it loses Shove,
and Break Concentration. That's the other one. Wizard's one of its key strengths is being what I call the duelist classes. One of the duelist classes being Bard and Wizard, where they have access to Perlite Break Con. Giving that up is not a great trade on paper. Your ability to quickly and efficiently interact with other casters and other martial classes as well. There are certain classes that totally, you can get value out of suppressing them in a pinch. But the fact that you have to trade that away I guess the main argument for Warlock, one of the things that's nice about it is getting the 4 pyrotechnics. If you love pyrotechnics, then it's really good.
It's such a good spell, but also pyrotechnics suck.
It's awesome. I love pyrotechnics.
The effect is good. Yeah. It isn't. It doesn't work because there's not enough people carrying enough equipment to feel relevant. And 2, half the time if I cast pyrotechnics, I have to then stop and explain what it did.
It blows up everything you're carrying.
And then by the time I get done explaining to them that no, it doesn't matter if you're immune to flame because it destroys the equipment, not you.
It's an equipment.
Like by the time you get through the argument about pyrotechnics, it's just, and then I wish it wasn't level 5. If pyrotechnics was a level 4 spell, I feel like
if you could experience pyrotechnics, I think that would change a lot of things.
I think it would change the meta. I think that we would see an alternate to the Icy Blast Shatter Battle Mage. Imagine the wizard chasing behind you.
So fast.
the wizard's behind you, and you're like, you just see this guy in full plate running, trying to like escape the pyrotechnic. It'd be great.
They might want to walk it back to 20. If they do that, they might want to walk it back to 20 feet. Being base 50
I'm okay
and
with that.
being rechargeable, that's really strong. Honestly,
I'm
though,
okay with that. Like,
Yeah.
there are ways to get around pyrotechnic, but it is the only verbal that destroys shield,
True.
right?
That's
And it's
very good.
like,
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
I would love to see a destroy shield spell with the amount of imbued and hardened shields that we have now. Like,
Yeah.
with Guardian Paladin, or not Guardian Paladin. Is Guardian the one with imbued shield, or is that the...
I think it's Guardian.
Yeah, Guardian
I'm pretty
Paladin.
sure.
I was right. With Guardian Paladin having imbued shields now, it is rough to be trying to do spell balls. And I think that this
Yeah.
was an unintended Battle Mage buff, which was not what Battle Mage needed. This was a problem.
Yeah.
And I think we're still living in this, because now imbued shield per life makes spell balls even harder to make work. Because they're already less optimal because you have to pick them up. They're already harder to use. You have to be able to physically throw them. And now the thing that you want to hit with the spell ball is immune to spell balls. It's like, okay, this is...
That being said, though, there is definitely still opportunities for spell balls to be strong. I've seen there's a lot of wizards in our kingdom that I've seen use spell balls to great effect. Being not even necessarily Evoker, just like taking a bunch of spell balls and
Oh, they're
playing
still good.
archetype lists.
They're still very good.
Specifically against
But-
like Paladin, it gets a little rough, but honestly, it's like it's not too bad.
But the problem that Evoker has specifically is Evoker loses access to Dispel.
Yeah.
And so now, if you're on a park level, right? If you're at a park and you're
Yeah.
playing Evoker and anyone is playing Guardian Paladin, they are going to eat your lunch all day, every day. All they have to do is dodge one spell ball, one sphere.
Yep.
And then
I mean, that's why you just got to make sure you get them on your team.
that's the real meta right there. But no, but with
Secret technique: volunteer to be a team leader.
Pyrotechnics is such a cool spell, and I've got an entire video on the channel about how we should re-level some things to make Wizard less stagnant. And one of the things I want to do is push Pyrotechnics down to 4th level or make it naturally rechargeable.
That would be pretty cool.
That'd be cool.
I would really like to see some wins for Pyrotechnics. That spell is definitely, I think it's definitely underrated. I think that it has opportunities to shine in the current format, but I think it would really be awesome if Pyrotechnics saw more mainstream play.
I would go so far as to have the very controversial take that Pyrotechnics could remain at 5th level and be a per life. Hear me out.
I think
Mend is per life.
that's true.
My per refresh max 2 spell is negated by a level 1 per life spell.
At a time, though, because Pyrotechnics will blow up everything, and then if you can do that per life, every time you die, you come back, find
How
your
often do you
favorite
see
warrior.
melee fighters carrying more than one weapon and a shield?
It's surprisingly popular in our kingdom, I would say. Most of our martial players carry at least an extra sword.
This is good and needed, but also 3 points of level 1 magic negating my per refresh max 2. The max 2 is what like signals that there was something here that they didn't understand, because it feels like there's so much that can just negate all of it. And even if you get 4 of them per refresh, the downsides are so strong that it doesn't feel relevant. And then there's always the secret tech of dropping your equipment.
True. Although if they drop the equipment in response to the cast, that's a pretty solid win for you as the wizard. Same thing with heat weapon. If I start casting heat weapon at a player and they do the thing where they hide their sword behind the shield, it does block the heat weapon, but it creates opportunity for the other frontliners on my team, because now
they're out of position.
They're aggressing the front line, and now the person I'm starting to cast heat weapon on is standing with their sword behind their shield where they can't really throw a shot with it.
Right.
So now it's like all of a sudden now martial combat theory comes into play, right? Because now our frontliners on our team are able to aggress the player I'm casting heat weapon on, and even though I didn't destroy their equipment, I didn't heat the weapon. Same thing with shatter, I guess, but I didn't actually resolve the spell yet. The fact that they already had to take game actions that are detrimental to them just to sidestep the effect of that spell makes it so that it's not an immediate benefit to me as a wizard, but it makes all of our frontliners a lot stronger, because now their martial theory comes into play. Now it's like you're looking at you're opening quadrants, you're opening shots, you're opening wounds, you're opening kills. So even if pyrotechnics in its current state isn't super effective specifically at destroying the weapons, even if you can find a player to respect the pyrotechnics, or excuse me, or they'll do something, they'll drop their equipment, they'll do whatever. If they drop their equipment, depending on how you position the pyrotechnics, because you're very flexible with it, it's 50 feet, so
Right.
you, wherever you are, if you can get a player based on their position to do something like drop all of their gear to not get pyrotechnics, you've effectively, for 0 spells, you haven't even finished the cast yet, for 0 spells, you've punched a hole in their front line. Even if you only have 2 pyrotechnics, even if you only expend 1 per game to actually pyrotechnic somebody and make good on the threat, forever after that, the rest of the game, you destroy a player's equipment 1 time with pyrotechnics like that, if they respect the threat of the second pyrotechnics and they do something like drop their equipment to dodge the effect, even at per refresh frequency, even at an unchargeable frequency, and the not being able to be charged, even with just 2, if you make good on 1 of them, and then the second one is only existing to threaten the full cast of a second one, if players are intentionally having to drop their gear or in other ways posture kind of unfavorably into your frontliners, because it kind of goes beyond you as just the wizard, right? You're not
Right.
succeeding
At that point,
destroying
you're
their
looking for
equipment.
teamwork. You're looking for an archer to shoot them in the chest as soon as they drop the shield.
Yep.
You make a
so
fair
it's a benefit
point.
to you.
I just
It's quite strong.
because at least here in the Rising Winds, people don't know what pyrotechnics does.
That's fair.
Forcing the
Explanation
bluff, I'd have to spend, and that's the problem, is frequency. Heat weapon, everyone knows heat weapon and what to do about heat weapon. But with pyrotechnics, there isn't enough frequency of it for people to fear and respect it. And so, like, it's like when I cast Destroy Armor on someone at the last event we had, because I was playing a meme list and I had 20 Destroy Armors. And I got through 3 out of my 5 Destroy Armors on them. And then they're like, "What are you doing? Am I dead?" I'm like,
death destroys thy
no,
armor. 1,
you just
2,
don't
3.
have any armor on most of your limbs. And then they're like,
I love that spell.
it's not a good spell, but
It's on paper, it's not the strongest.
you have to
I do
acknowledge
like
it is
that
a
it's
per
2 per
refresh
point.
spell that destroys 1 of 5 hit locations on a per life instant comeback piece of equipment. It doesn't prevent them from leaving. It doesn't prevent them from getting repairs. It doesn't, and it. The way you know it's bad is they gave you 2 per point.
I don't know though. Every time I see something that's 2 uses per point, I always go, "Ooh."
Now, if you take
Something's going on
Warlock, it's 4 per point, and at that point, like,
Well, you're also restricted out of a lot of other bread and butter spells on Warlock, so taking 1 point for 4 Destroy Armor, even if you don't end up using them very often, like 1 point for 4 of anything, it's the same thing as Bard Dervish.
it's
1 point for
good
4
at that
anything
point.
is
But if you're
incredible.
playing Battle Mage without the Warlock and you take Destroy Armor, heaven forbid you experience Destroy Armor, it's like, okay, the economy of your time doesn't work at that point. So for our last big Kingdom event was Battlecry, and at Battlecry I had 20 Destroy Armors. I think next time I play my Warlock list, I'm going to drop it down to 10 because I didn't get to 20, and I didn't, and I was trying. I was actively my goal for Battlecry was to strip someone of all of their armor, and the most I could get off on someone was 3. And I'm like, okay, if this was the explicit goal of this list was to do this terrible thing, and I couldn't pull it off because by the time you hit 2 hit points, they're either fighting someone else and moved on, or dead from some other effect, or frozen. Like on a Kingdom field, it's a little chaotic. So I still want to do it.
I will always encourage players to try spells like that. I think that one of the best parts about Amtgard as a system for building lists and stuff like that is kind of how everyone's personal experience with battle gaming kind of informs how you build those kind of lists. So I'm sure that somewhere somebody will find a way to get the full value out of those destroy armors. I don't think it's not something that I personally have explored very much. But I always try to do what I can to try to encourage players who are kind of getting into Wizard and learning all the different pieces of kit to, experiment with new things. Amtgard is really great for expressing creativity and list building. So while that ability is not super strong, I always do what I can to try to encourage people to, try lists like it and kind of, see where those spells can get value out of. And even if you don't end up using it in your bread and butter list, stuff like Destroy Armor gets you thinking about different aspects of battle gaming, even if it's not related to the resolution of that spell, right?
Sure.
If I'm taking Destroy Armor on my list, even if I'm not getting full value for it, even if I'm not casting it as frequently as I would like to, stuff like Destroy Armor presents a different opportunity where instead it gets you thinking about how the armored players on the field position, and it kind of gives you a new perspective on how the board lays out. You see how all the players are moving about the battlefield, and even if Destroy Armor doesn't really do a lot on paper, it gets you thinking about it. You're looking at the field, you're seeing the armored players, you see how they position on the front line, you see how they aggress objectives, you see how they fall back, you see how they group up, and it kind of focuses your attention on an axis of battle gaming that most of your other Wizard kit doesn't really do for you. Stuff like Icy Blast doesn't really, you can freeze a lot of players.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get you thinking about the way the equipment moves independently of the players, the way that Destroy Armor does. So in that respect, I think stuff like Destroy Armor, stuff like pyrotechnics and destroying equipment and stuff, it gets you thinking on a different axis. And even if you don't get all the value for that, I think it's worth at least exploring stuff like Warlock, exploring Destroy Armor, or even the enchantment side of Wizard. You get stuff like Vampirism, Contagion, start thinking about different elements of the game, and they kind of serve as these landmarks where you can focus specific parts of your vision on the battlefield. Even if you don't get all the value for casting the spell necessarily, it does a lot for you, and I think that's a really valuable experience to try out. Sorry, that's my passionate defense of spells like Destroy Armor.
No, you make a good point. It's fun. It's fun to do these dumb challenge lists and say, I want to break all their hit points on armor. At the same time, we can't say that it's optimal.
It's difficult to say. I don't, generally speaking,
you cannot convince me that experienced Destroy Armor is better than Lightning Bolt and experienced Drag Below. But
I would say
it can be a lot more fun, and that's I'm trying to get out of my optimization phase and into my having fun phase. And I've been playing a lot more Warlock.
That's an important part of the Amtgard journey, I think. There's definitely a time to kind of on the journey through any class in Amtgard to kind of find those optimizations and kind of get your gameplay up to higher levels and kind of work on building up that general battle gaming foundation as you advance through the game, as you get more experience. Years go by, events happen, and you go to events and you kind of build up that foundation. But really the most important part, I think, is remember that you're to do it for fun. That's something that I always encourage of all players that are on the Paragon grind. I always say, as long as you're playing for the love of the class, you're well on your way. And I think that's really important, especially when we think about, conversations about things being optimal and things being fun. It's I don't generally like to, I try to stick to the position that there generally is no objective truth of list building. Some spells are stronger on paper than others, but I think it's not a very satisfying answer, but I like to think that pretty much every ability has a home somewhere. And I think even if the value of a spell isn't immediately apparent in either its execution, how it is on the field, or how it is on paper, or its frequency, or something like that makes it otherwise generally deemed not super playable, I think that every single aspect of casters, every single aspect of battle game abilities in general, every single thing has a valuable tool to learn about that you can ultimately take back to your toolkit. I think that's a really great thing to be looking out for as you kind of explore abilities like Destroy Armor. Is it's not necessarily like, don't force it if you don't enjoy playing spells like Destroy Armor, but taking those abilities and going off of those well-traveled paths to try to, see other things, it gets you thinking about the game in a different way. And even if it's not something you end up sticking with, it'll give you some sort of knowledge, it'll give you some sort of experience or a tool to add to your toolkit that'll ultimately overall improve your gameplay. It improves your game sense, it improves whatever archetype you want to play, any class, any game. Pretty much, yeah, try a bunch of new stuff. It's the best. I highly encourage.
Do you have anything you want to say about playing Generalist before we move on?
Archetype was a rough one for me during my studies. I had a hard time. It gives you access to spell balls, which is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of trouble juggling verbals versus spell balls. There's this kind of theory that that my friends and I developed on Bard. We called it passive song theory. The idea was that since Bard with songs, every time you finish an incantation, anytime you finish a game action, right, you drop back into a song. The song you choose is informed by what you can see, your immunities. It's dynamic, but you cast a spell, and generally, if you have open bandwidth after that, it's good practice to drop back into a song, even if it's Song of Determination, Song of Freedom. And the same was kind of true of Archetypeless Wizard. I used to do Short Sword and Offhand Spellball and Ice Ball. And the theory is Ice Ball doesn't occupy your open hand as uncharged, so you would cast a spell at somebody, charge an Ice Ball, cast a spell, charge an Ice Ball. And it's kind of tricky. It's kind of a difficult balancing act to try to, because you have to think about where you want your verbals to go and then where you want the spell ball to go. Any second that there's dead air, like any time that you're not able to, you're either not, you don't have a target or you don't have, a proactive action to take, it generally is best spent charging your spell ball. But kind of that split between the two was really, really difficult for me when I was studying it. Ultimately, I didn't end up sticking with it. I think that Archetypeless is very strong. I think having access to literally everything is very good, especially if you like spell balls. If you want spell balls and maintain access to break concentration, Archetypeless is very, very, very strong.
How do you build your spell balls?
How do I build spell balls? So it's a little expensive and not quite practical, but I like it. I use these foam practice tennis balls.
I use the same thing.
I love these. They're a nice uniform shape. They throw okay. They're pretty kind. I haven't had any issues accidentally, hitting somebody in the head with these. So they're pretty gentle. You just take a square cloth and put it around them, put a hair tie on it. I really like these. The downside is the ones that I get from the sporting goods store by my house. They're really expensive. So they're not the most economical way to build a spell ball, depending on where you get them from. I'm sure you can buy them in bulk somewhere. The places I had available, I ended up spending way too much money on them. But I like these. I like the practice spell ball. It's true. Okay. And they're pretty durable too. I think the only ones I've had to toss so far were ones that got like super rained on. So they're pretty durable on everyday wear and tear, as long as you don't toss them in a puddle or something.
Okay. So you already mentioned that you buy short sword and you use short sword a lot. Have you ever bought the long sword?
Oh yes. At Crystal Clash, I think it was Crystal Clash 3. Was it Crystal Clash 3? I think it was this year. Yeah, Crystal Clash 3, I believe it was. I played Longsword Wizard, mostly for fun, mostly because I build my own equipment on the background over here. So the longsword I built, I'm really happy with how it's balanced, and it feels really good to play. It maneuvers pretty easy. So I was like, oh well, I'll do longsword because it's funny. So I forget what the list actually ended up looking like. I'm pretty sure I just cut into my pile of innates, traded the short sword for a long, and then cut some of the innates out, and ended up I just did Longsword Wizard with that. It was basically just bread and butter Icy Blast Shatter. This was back when I was still kind of in the kind of finding the optimal balance of trying to get the most out of my spell list. what I came up with was Icy Blast Shatter, but it would take a bunch of splashes because it turns out it wasn't super necessary to invest a lot into specifically the Icy Blast Shatter stuff. What I do is I usually take 2 of something so that it synchronizes against my Steel Life Essence. I started calling it Steel Life Essence Resource Synchronization, where you take 2 of something that's experienced specifically so that it balances against your 2 Steel Lives. And once you start building lists like that, where it's like, okay, I'm tying these abilities to my Steel Life to functionally make them per life, all of a sudden it opens up a whole bunch. Like I could afford Banish on that list, so I was able to target assassins. I think I was playing Battle Mage too, because it's a 2-handed longsword. So basically, all I had to do is take a hand off the longsword, cast a spell at somebody, and now you still got the longsword. It's very fun. It's very rewarding. Playing Lightsaber Wizard is very, very fun. I highly recommend it.
I just wish it wasn't so expensive.
Yeah, it's a little rough at because it's at a higher level, but a lot of the time points get rolled down anyway.
But I mean,
if you
still,
want to,
4 points at level 5, it's still like if it was 2, I could justify it a lot easier, you know?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty well positioned in terms of like how much equipment costs for spellcasters. Like, I mean, it's a lot. Generally speaking, it's a difficult trade. Like, it's a big upfront cost to take on something like wielding a longsword.
If you look at the equipment that other casters get,
it
almost feels like, oh, hang on, how much? Let me look up Druid real fast. What does Druid get?
Yeah, Druid. Yes, Druid Ranger is really something else.
Ranger gets all of it, but if they just have to hard buy, hang on, let me get my tab pulled up here.
I think it's like what, 15 points or something crazy like that.
So if Druid wants a great weapon, it costs 1 more point at level 5. So it's 5 points of level 5 magic, and they get a polearm.
True.
Longest reached weapon in the game. Doesn't feel equivalent.
It's a little rough. I think it's balanced that way. It seems like it's balanced that way on purpose to kind of... It kind of makes you think about this value trade of like... Because spellcasters, they have the most flexible ability lists of classes as opposed to martials. So it kind of makes this thing, it's like, do you really want this equipment? And with Ranger, it kind of trivializes it. You can kind of just have everything. But
well, yeah, because they can buy Ranger for 2 points and then get all of it. 2
points is everything.
I really do think that archetypes should be mutually exclusive. And I think then they would work a lot better. Because right now, it just...
I like combining them though. I will say some of the most fun I've had in Amtgard is on a double or triple archetype list. Unfortunately, Wizard is not one of those classes. If you take all 3 archetypes, you can only take innate and a short sword and a long sword. But stuff with Bard has a list with 3 archetypes. I don't think Healers really works very well. Druids also plays. Druids is interesting. 3 archetype Druid basically opens up since you can take a bow and up to level 2 equipment.
Right.
Or level 3, I guess. You get small shield and a short, and you get a bow. And you can give yourself the doubled frequency Gift of Earth to harden your bow. And basically that entire 3 archetype just plays as like enchanting yourself with stuff with Gift of Earth over and over.
Which seems like a point waste.
It's definitely not the most point efficient play. I do think it's interesting. Sorry, this is kind of Druid posting a little bit.
No, we can't get back on Druid. We spent 20 minutes on Druid before we got there. Okay.
Another time.
Let's talk about the defensive abilities of Wizard. How is Wizard's defensive abilities?
Wizard's has a pretty solid defense in that, well, generally your offensive spells serve to be your strongest defensive. You can if you can exert control over your B range, that 20-foot range, if you're able to keep people out of that range with your spells, or if they respect it and purposefully range themselves out to stay away from your abilities, then you are succeeding at defending that space. And I think that that's really strong. In terms of actual abilities that actually, on paper, do defensive things, Ward Self, I really love a lot. Ward Self, I think that spell is I won't say underrated, but it's definitely not. It's not. I don't see it as often as it's not played as much as I wish it was. I really love Word Self. It's its frequency is not fantastic as it is in the current rules of play, but I really like what that spell does. I like that it's blessing against, all sorts of different effects. I like that you can enchant yourself with it, and then you can e-barrage or something, so it protects you against crowd control while you're in the ongoing state. You know what I mean? Like it opens the floor to defensive options. It gives you kind of a bubble that it's what I would call in some of my other theory craft documents I was writing. There's some of them I call zone breaker abilities. And a zone breaker ability is just anything that allows you to pass through another player's area of influence, either unimpeded or somehow make it easier for you to get through those spaces. And I think that Ward Self is so good for that. Wizard doesn't really have a lot of ways themselves to get through stuff like that, other than dueling people. You break con them, you suppress aura them from outside of their break con range. You can wound people, shove them, throw them, push people out of your space. I don't know. Word Self it really shines. I think that in applications where it's good, it's really good, and I wish we had more of it. But I really enjoy that the defensive options of Wizard, besides just casting a spell at somebody.
Sure. Okay. What is an enchantment that you're always on the lookout for?
Like ones that I would want to be enchanted by?
Yeah, like what's the wizard, like what do you want to get?
Okay, this is gonna sound wild, but hear me out. Lycanthropy. Lycanthropy Wizard, unironically,
Can't believe this.
is... Yeah. Lycanthropy Wizard, unironically, is one of the strongest class enchantment combinations I've played.
Oh, for
at
sure.
least on the wizard side of it. Because it gives you pro command, which means that all of a sudden you are favored in caster duels against other players. It gives you points of defense. If someone tries to push your A range, you are able to fight them. If you have a short sword, if you have your short sword or your long sword or whatever you're playing. So it kind of does 2-in-1, right? Where it makes it so it's harder to aggress you because you have more opportunities to get hit and trade attacks with your opponent. But it also gives you that pro command, which also turns off a lot of kind of very important frontline spells. That's where your awes come in. You have, it stops proactive stuff like hold person. It makes it, so like healers have to like shove you.
It gives you a super good defense all the way around.
Yeah, it's honestly, this might be a kind of brain rot take. I think that pretty much every caster class super benefits from lycanthropy. If I had to choose, if I was playing any caster class, if anybody was like, hey, do you want lycanthropy? Absolutely. That enchantment in tandem with the caster loadout, it raises your ceiling. It gets you through zones. It lets you play aggressive. You can position more aggressive as you have armor on now. So it doesn't make it that much easier to win if you like get in a direct fight, but it also gives you a lot more opportunities to either get away, finish casting a spell. If you start casting a spell at somebody, if they're close enough, they might try to rush you down and try to kill you before the incantation is done. But if you have lycanthropy, it gives you 2 points everywhere. If they're striking you in different hit it buys you more time to resolve your spell, assuming you're not already ambulant. So
or if you are ambulant, it makes it so much harder to kill you.
Exactly. It helps you. It helps prevent you from getting picked by stray arrows. Generally, you want to be careful watching out for archers anyway, because wizard is a class without a shield and it's very vulnerable to arrows. But lycanthropy, just having that armor just gives you an extra defense. It lets you position yourself more aggressively. It gives you pro command. I love lycanthropy. I'm sad it's max 2, but I understand. I don't know.
It's max 2 for a reason.
I don't know if that. Yeah, I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I love lycanthropy. I am the #1 lycanthropy fan. I love that spell.
Well, let's talk about team comp for a second. What class is the class you most want to have on your team? And we're gonna make this hard and say you can't pick bard.
Okay. Classes I like to see the most. I don't know if it's a very satisfying answer, but I kind of enjoy all of them. I think that the way that teams get balanced and the way that the distribution of classes across the field kind of, how they kind of settle after, team selection and stuff, I think the fact that it's always constantly different and constantly evolving and changing, you can see throughout the years, I've seen how Kingdom Field compositions have changed over time. Certain classes are more popular, some get less popular. You can see stuff come and go. And I think that it's really cool that it's different every time. And I really enjoy getting to field with pretty much any combination of classes. I think the energy of events,
Sure.
especially larger fields, the energy of everyone being passionate about the game and trying new classes and playing the ones they like, and like all that all together, you can pretty much make any team composition work as long as you communicate with your team and as long as you're able to organize, organize your pushes and see where your objectives lie. You can make any of those work, and I will always be happy to see any sash on my side of the field. I think
Okay.
every single ability has a home in the battle system of Amtgard in general, and I think that the fact that it's different and it subtly changes in composition over time, I think that's part of the best. That's like the best part of it. That it's always shifting, it's always different, and you can see it in your spell list too. Like I've from like the last fall Koro to our battle game tournament in the spring this year to spring Koro to now, you can see these subtle trends and changes in the way that fields build out. And I think that pretty much every class, all of their abilities kind of it's nice. Pretty much there's never a time where I feel like, oh, I wish we had X class, because pretty much as long as you're willing to reframe a class's kit to apply it to the battle game situation, you generally the game is set up in a way where most you have a decent sized field, most of your functionalities of a team are covered. So at that point it becomes like, what does everybody like to play, what do people specialize in, and then you can start kind of breaking it down into kind of the micro game. It's like, okay, players ABC go this way, and then we go this way, and then we
Yeah, I
kind of
gotcha.
organize pushes and stuff. I don't know, it's not quite as satisfying an answer, I imagine, but I do like playing on the same side as Druid. That'll give me lycanthropy. That's pretty cool.
What class
But
is your worst matchup?
I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about this question all afternoon, and I'm gonna give it to Barbarian. I think,
Mm.
and this is mostly after the change of adding Rage.
Mm-hmm.
I think Barbarian already before was positioned very strongly against Wizard. I mean, you would want to hang on to Ravage Wounding and Icy Blast Shatter specifically against Barbarian, because you couldn't get them with Ice Ball. You can't
Right.
hold person them. Most of the most of the repeatable kill combos don't work. Hold person doesn't work. Astral intervention doesn't work. It's Icy Blast Shatter and it's like Ravage Wound and Finger of Death and stuff like that to try to keep barbarians, kind of that was your way to deal with them. But with the introduction of Rage, it adds this extra thing, and especially with the Berserker archetype where it becomes chargeable and they can like momentum it back.
Well, it's
The fact
chargeable
that
on
they
the
can
default now.
the fact that they can recharge it so frequently, especially as
It's strong.
Berserker, yeah, they pretty much can just choose any 7 seconds to be immune to your spells, and that was a tech that started emerging on Kingdom in the last year. You see a lot more barbarians using Rage instead of just using it as an offensive push and using it to like crush through shields, like get in.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, using it as a defensive tool, almost like a counter spell. If you
Yes.
start casting a spell at a barbarian that is effective, they can use their rage to effectively dodge the spell, and then if they can kill anybody, then they can momentum it back and they can keep that going. So all of a sudden barbarians they're armored, they have access to shields, they have all sorts of melee weapons. They're really, really, really good at pushing your position and punishing you for not being where you're supposed to be. Barbarian is very much a class that excels at going after players that aren't in the right position. If you're away from the pack, if you're kind of off to the side, or you're kind of not moving with the unit, then barbarians generally they do very well at coming in and kind of just killing you. And the fact that now your defensive options an Icy Blast and stuff like that, the fact that they can now choose to be 7 seconds immune to it without sacrificing their positioning at all. If they are intent on going for a pick against you, you can it makes heat weapons stronger, but that's basically what you got. You can heat their weapon. You can try to reposition with Ambulant. You can get out, but as soon as they pop rage, all of a sudden, all of those interactions that you used to be able to have back when it was fight after death, they're not as effective anymore. So for that reason, I think Barbarian is really a tough one.
Okay. Are there any common misconceptions about Wizard that you want to clear up?
The one that sticks out to me is this might also be a hot take. Is the discourse surrounding Icy Blast. It is true that being frozen is an incredibly rough state to be in, but Icy Blast kind of after spending a lot of time on it, and I've gone around in circles about it a lot during my journey. Icy Blast exists in a very specific space in the Wizard kit. The fact that it strikes on an axis of sorcery setup, sorcery payoff,
yes,
in a list that can also for 2 points accommodate Ravage wounding at 2 points. You have a sorcery and a death axis kill combo that effectively it creates a fork where stuff like Ad Pro cannot catch because you're not dipping into other spell schools. It also, the fact that the other kill spell combos that aren't spell balls are mostly command. Your Astral Intervention, Dimensional Rift, your Hold Person Drag Below. The fact that the setup is command means they're a lot harder to land on a lot of martial classes. A lot of strong frontliners are immune to your command spells.
All of them are.
Basically, Icy Blast kind of exists in this interesting space, and there's a lot more counterplay now than there used to be. With the introduction of archetypes, now you have stuff like Corruptor Warlock. Now Rage exists. There's things that marshals have access to now that prevent them from being an easy pick for an Icy Blast. And I think the fact that it continues to set up, the fact that it is sorcery school and it does not it doesn't get into other spell schools, and the fact that you can do something like Ravage Wounding, Icy Blast. If you on the matchup chart, they both have the highest, the most positive matchups. If you count between every class and all their conditional immunities, counting enchantments and stuff that they can give themselves in a vacuum against each of those combos, Ravage Wounding and Icy Blast Shatter have the highest amount of favorable matchups on classes, and that's mostly due to the fact that they are one school setup. There's also a lot of interesting expression in how you use shatter. Generally, you try to ethically shatter people. Don't leave people frozen for too long. But there's also something about the way shatter works where it's not just the payoff to the kill combo. It is also a way to reclaim space. When you use Icy Blast Wizard, like when I've done it at like Kingdom tournaments and stuff like that, Icy Blast Shatter. What it's for is Icy Blast removes your high priority targets, generally frontliners, and your frontline advances the objective. You can release backstab people, but generally it's difficult against armored foes. So taking Shatter, we used to just do Shatter, no Shatter. It was just release, stab people in the back. But the matchup against armor is so rough to release people when they're frozen like that. And if you let them, just run the timer on it, then they'll thaw out and they'll run your backline if you don't pick them. So Shatter kind of gives you this way to push the line past the frozen targets and then shatter them so that once you shatter them, that space is now yours. They have to go back to respawn. They're not, a risk of, thawing out and then attacking your backliners now that you're ahead of them. They get a flank route for free. So I think that Icy Blast Shatter has a lot of really important applications in the broader format. And there is a lot of counterplay does exist. A lot of classes have access to release, and now we have, Martyr on Paladin and stuff like that kind of let you get frozen away from the key targets that have been frozen. So there does exist the counterplay to it, and I think it's kind of difficult. I remember when I was studying, I had a hard time with that because I really worried about
it's
because there's kind of a general
system, and
there's a consensus generally that Icy Blast is a spell that can dominate a field, but at the same time its application is really important. The counterplay increase, and I remember as I was studying it, one of the paragons that I was studying from had put it pretty well in that pretty much with any wizard list, there is the potential to perform at the level that Icy Blast Shatter does, even without Icy Blast Shatter. Even if you're playing something like Wounding Shove Control, there is a level of frequency where you can make it could be just as oppressive, and it's kind of important as battle gamers that we think about, playing for the enjoyment of everybody, right? And making sure that it is still fun for everybody. But at the same time, I try really hard not to disqualify Icy Blast from spell list building discussions, because I think that spell, while being frozen is not a fun state to be in, I think that its functionality and the way that it operates on the spell school, the way that it sets up, I think that that's really important that it's like that. I wish it didn't do what Frozen did, but the fact that it specifically it addresses those matchups and it kind of gives you that ability to advance the front line, I think that it has a place in the format. It's just the state is rough. I don't know.
It's definitely there and it's valid. I've been pushing for a while to try to see Icy Blast moved to Subdual School. And
that's pretty sweet, actually. I kind of like that.
Well, hear me out. Are you ready for this? You take Astral Intervention and make it Sorcery School.
Okay.
And then you have Hold Person into Drag Below as Command Death. You have Ravage Wounding as Death. You'd have Icy Blast into Shatter as Subdual Sorcery. And then you would have Astral Intervention into Dimensional Rift as Sorcery. So you would have, ideally, you'd have 4 different schools for your setups, and then you have 2 schools for your kills. You have Sorcery, and you have Death. So if you're pro Sorcery or pro Death, you're immune to half the kill combo. Then each of them would have, and then this is packaged with my immunity rebalance. I would take Pro Command away from every class that has Pro Command and just give it to Warrior. So now you have 4 different martial classes, 4 different immunities, 4 different kill combos, 4 different schools. So whichever school you're choosing, one of them is going to be immune to it, and then it will force I think it would be good for the meta, but
I could see that. I will say, as much as I remember back when I first started, it was incredibly frustrating to see all the martial classes that are immune to command. But it's kind of interesting because now, with all the time that I've spent playing casters, it's interesting because the command spells that currently exist are kind of balanced against the fact that most of the martial classes are immune to them. What you lose in matchup spread on things like Hold Person, on things like Awe, you're making up for in their sheer repeatability. The fact that most of those abilities are per life, the fact that they're generally pretty easy to cast, pretty low investment. They don't work all the time, but I think that the fact that you're able to put up such a sheer volume of them is kind of offset by the fact that there is a list of classes that they simply do not work on. It is kind of frustrating on field when you go on field, you have only command spells while you're leveling your classes, and you see that, a bunch of players are immune to your spells. But at the same time, it's like if we didn't do anything to the frequency or the way that command spells are currently set up, and you simply took all the command immunities away or, move them somewhere else, then it creates this environment where now all of a sudden the thing that was holding back all of these really effective per life abilities all of a sudden doesn't exist anymore, which is in that situation is a buff to Warrior with Shake It Off and stuff. If they got command immunity, it would be a huge buff to Warrior.
Warrior needs the buff right now.
They do. Warrior needs help.
Warrior needs the buff, and frankly, I think with Guardian with the way that Paladin and Anti-Paladin are feasting right now with their new archetypes, I think that that's a soft debuff that they probably deserve. And if you did both of those changes in conjunction and made Icy Blast Subdual School, Barbarian becomes the immune to frozen guy. So I think that's a fair trade. Like, hey, do you want to never be frozen? Play Barbarian.
That's fair. I think that it would be...
It would definitely be a giant meta shakeup. Like, people would have to figure this out.
It would be worth looking at.
That's kind of what I'm looking for at this point.
But
okay.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind. Although, to be fair, I love Amtgard so much as the rules have been changing over the years. Honestly, I could wake up and they could tell me that they removed Awe from the game, and I would still love this game as much as I do right now. I really enjoy it. Just there's so much about Amtgard to love that, you know, I wouldn't mind changes like that, but I'd be interested to see what the rules team does with it.
So, Wizard on a Kingdom field versus a Park field. Tell us, what are the secrets to playing Wizard at Park versus Kingdom?
I think the biggest focus for Wizard at Park, since they have such a sheer volume of spells that you can cast, like stuff you can do, is the important thing is to remember to play for the enjoyment of everyone, right? Be careful not to, because like in the moment it feels good to like, you know, just kind of like, you know, load up on Icy Blast and kind of roll a field. And it's like in the moment it feels good to do that, but it's kind of at the detriment of other players involved at Park. So on smaller fields like that where the counterplay isn't as prevalent, it's something to be mindful of. Just make sure that, you know, that everyone is, you know, having a good time, as is the most important part of Amtgard in general. Battle gaming is it's important to make sure that everyone's having fun.
I'd agree.
So it's really a great opportunity to get into silly things, I think. Park is kind of there's been some pretty fun strategies I've worked on Park. I've got a pretty good one. All right, hear me out. All right.
Okay, I'm ready for this.
I got the Park strategy. Are you ready? Persistent Contagion. Here's the play.
Desperately want to give Persistent Contagion to someone.
So the hard part is convincing somebody to do it. You
It's
gotta
so hard
you gotta
to
convince
sell
a friend to find somebody with armor, right? You find your armored friend, right? You say, hey, Persistent Contagion. It is imbue weapon at home. It gives them wounds kill, but they're fragile. But if they have armor, they gotta get through the armor to kill the fragile player.
Right.
Unless they have
Warriors
wounding,
should always be asking for Persistent Contagion. Like,
I've tried very hard to convince people with armor to take Persistent Contagion. It's very funny.
it's a
and then
good ability. And hear me out. Nobody's dispelling Contagion.
Once they hear the word persistent, it's a little more persuasive.
It's still like the thing though. If I'm playing Wizard and someone comes up and they're like Persistent Contagion, I'm gonna wound them. Be like, haha,
Yeah.
now you're dead. And then you can come back later and I'll wound you again. You can't be over here now. And then they're gonna go somewhere else and be Persistent Contagion. Like
It's good. I love that combo. And then okay, here's the second part
out
of
of
it,
respect
right?
for trying to do it. Like I'll
There's a
wound
second
them so
part
they
to the
go away,
strategy,
but
too.
I'm not gonna dispel you.
Yeah. So
Someone
the other
out
part of that
there
strategy
wants to play Persistent Contagion. Get in my DMs. I want to put this on your list.
Persistent Contagion fans, sound off in the comments.
Come and find us. We're ready. I will change my spell list to give you this stuff.
We have the technology. But then the play after that is you go in on teleport. The two
Teleport the 6-point Persistent Contagion
teleport.
to the back line.
You know what? Go crazy. Experience teleport. Here's the play. You give someone Persistent Contagion. Take enough contagions, you can just give them away. You know, take Persistent Contagion, right? Take a bunch. Give someone Persistent Contagion. Give people regular Contagion. It's all good. And then you use your Experience Teleport synchronized against your Steel Life Essence to punch holes in the terrain. All of a sudden, every wall is a door. And you have the key. And every person you want to get through is Persistent Contagion. Which is like twice. But yeah, it only needs to work a couple of times.
We could buy, if you really min-maxed this, if you maxed this out, you can get 3 persistence at level 6 with 6 points. Contagion
and now
has no max.
I hear you saying, Druid can do this for cheaper. And it's kind of true. Druid doesn't get persistent. They get imbue weapon, which is the actual effect.
Right? And that's the problem with wizard enchantments, is there's always a better enchantment. If you look at vampirism gives you adrenaline, which is just not good. Gift of Water gives you unlimited heal.
That would be really funny if you could give people Gift of Water. That would be... Wizard, it's like, what? They have Void Touch, they have Contagion, they have like Vampirism and Ward Self. And
I think that Wizard should just lose the enchantments and give them to someone that makes sense.
They kind of just get kicked off of spell lists because of archetype restrictions. You usually don't think a ton... I mean, you can do... Well,
only
we have
Battle
the
Mage
Wizard
prevents
Handshake.
enchanting. And so, giving out wizard enchantments, though, is so difficult. Because really, the only good one is Void Touched. And you're like, okay, hey, who wants Void Touched? And then no one raises their hand because all the anti-paladins can have it with their archetypes now. And you're like,
Yeah.
all right, fine.
Used to not be able to. They used to. They used
They used to want
to.
it, and
Yeah.
now they don't want it anymore. And I'm just like, all right, fine. I won't take the enchantments, guy.
Well, the other play what you can do is what I my friends and I have called the wizard handshake. Right? You get on
Oh,
a team.
yes.
There's you and another wizard, and basically, what you do is at the start of the game, as soon as you step out of spawn, hands in the middle, power of friendship style. You go
Persistent void touch
embrace
each
the
other.
old ones. Yeah, persistent, embrace the old ones, and surrender thyself. 3 times thus in void touched you shall be. And we run out onto the field with both yelling persistent void touch, and then have a great time.
Shadow step into banishing yourself is the
It's good. It's good.
it's the goat.
It's good. I don't know. I think that they're not strong on paper, but I think that again, it's like we were saying with like destroy armor. It opens up levels of interaction that like I
The really
would love
devious
to
thing
see
to do.
players explore. Yeah, Kingdom, it's a little different. That at a park level experimentation is really awesome, and it is true of Kingdom as well. And early with Kingdom, the things to think about though, as we start scaling up, is you start thinking about the fact that counterplay to stuff, especially stuff like Icy Blast, because that's something that I'm always cognizant of, is how Icy Blast is counterplayed. As you scale up, the ability to clear the status of being frozen and checking Icy Blast with different defensive abilities and reactive abilities, it's much higher. There's a lot more players to do it. So you can be a lot more generous about your kind of like crowd control abilities, being able to remove players from a fight with spells like Icy Blast and then shattering them after the line advances. Because now the counterplay is a lot more prevalent, so you need to be pushing a lot harder to get through the wall of counterplay. And sometimes you'll find these moments where your spells are they're not effective. You'll find that you're being walled out, either with immunities, either with like, healer is really on release or something like that. And then it creates these moments that I started calling shield drop moments. Back when I played Bard a bunch at Kingdom, there was these moments where I would like be playing and my spells weren't effective. What I wanted to do was be frontlining, but our frontline was congested. And it's like I couldn't get into the front. My spells weren't working on the frontliners. They're immune to awe, and I couldn't stand at the front with my shield because we were already congested at a choke point. So the play was to drop the shield, take the dagger, run the flank route, stop singing, take the flank route, and start drum rolling backs. And so I started calling it a shield drop moment, where if you find situations, especially at Kingdom, where your kit is not effective, and it can be frustrating sometimes when you find situations where your spells aren't working, they're not coming up, stuff like that. But every single challenge like that presents an opportunity. And at Kingdom, especially when you're playing stuff like Wizard and you're trying to build to have a lot of access to different abilities and stuff, there are going to be moments where you're not effective in the spot where you are. And the play is to reframe the way you think about your kit and apply it on a different direction. So sometimes you'll find that you're playing a lane, you're getting caster dueled out, you're suppressed, you're not able to sync your targets with your spells, and it's a rough time. So sometimes an important thing, and this is true, again, I'm going to say it again, this is true of pretty much all classes generally. There will be a time where the play is to drop the core gameplay loop that you're focused on originally and kind of think about how your kit can be applied in a different place. So sometimes you'll find that on the front line you're not being effective, or something like that, or you're getting picked a bunch. And the play is not to keep trying to brute force the wall, but instead trust in your teammates that they can keep the forward momentum where they are and try to find the line to make value elsewhere. So if your targets are not working out where you're at, you're losing the caster duel or something, sometimes the best play is to reposition, and this can be physically reposition or adjust your target priority and kind of apply your kit to a different line in a way that begins to be positive for your team again. So if it's not working on the front face of it, your kit isn't doing what it needs to be doing from what you set out to do originally. An important part of battle gaming is recognizing the moment where it stops working for you. And the play is to instead shuffle not shuffle as in randomly, but like rearrange your priority. and find
Okay.
that there are situations where, hey, it's not working trying to cast or duel this player. I'm still getting suppressed, or they're 2v1ing you, right? Or something.
Right.
You're being overwhelmed in your lane, right? Sometimes you have to roam, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to, and you have to, it's important to communicate with your team as well. Check how they're doing, right? See how the front line is holding up. See if the front line, have faith in your front line that their position is stable, and make sure that communicate with them and make sure that this is true. And if they are stable where they are and it's not working out for you where you are, then you can go elsewhere. You can change lanes almost. You can switch to a different position, and all of a sudden your targets for your spells change completely. You might find in places where you weren't able to resolve your icy blast or your picks before, you have them now because
Yeah.
you've effectively rearranged yourself in the team composition. Or in the case of like Bard, or another big argument for taking a short sword or taking equipment is that not necessarily that you don't always take a short sword because you intend on fighting. Like the play is not always I'm gonna take a short sword and I'm gonna just fight people single short. Sometimes the play is having access, like for 2 points, picking up that short sword gives you access to this entirely separate game plan. Where if your casting is not working, if you're getting walled out on one front, you always have the opportunity to switch into that kind of martial theory mindset, right? You can kind of draw from what martial classes are able to do. And you go, okay, the spell casting isn't working right now. I'm getting suppressed. I'm getting pushed out, right?
Hmm.
So you can reposition. You can kind of see if you notice something like, oh, I see that all the focus is locked in on this front line, right? And it's gridlock, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting suppressed. Our front lines are locked up. Nothing is pushing, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes the play is to drum roll backs. Sometimes you see where the attention is, find your blind spot. It's something that assassin is really good at as well, is kind of being able to identify the blind spot in the enemy team. You find the opening, and all of a
Okay.
sudden, it's the expression I like to say whenever, because I've had this discussion a lot of times about this kind of theory of being able to repurpose your kit in sometimes unconventional ways to accomplish goals. The way I like to put it is, when you encounter a wall, open a door. The basically the way that applies is when you're not effective where you are, be the force that opens the door where you previously encountered a wall, right?
Okay.
Even if it's not conventional, even if it's I'm a bard and I've stopped singing, but I've stopped singing because I've dropped my passive immunity to instead play an offensive flank route where it is important that they do not hear me approach.
You're
While the front line
sneaking.
is gridlocked and attention is focused front, all of a sudden you can look for these opportunities and act upon them. If it's something you're consciously looking for, there are opportunities you will find that aren't readily apparent if you only focused on doing your primary objective. If you're
Okay.
only doing your bread and butter, then when you encounter a wall, it'll be frustrating. You won't be able to, it feels like you're not effective. It feels like you're not able to get in. But on a kingdom field, especially where there's enough players to cover roles, you have opportunities like that where if you find that wall, you can find the opening and open the door to a new line to advance your front line, to advance your objective. And sometimes those plays, and you kind of have to trust your instinct a little bit on it. Every player has a playmaking instinct on that sort of thing, where like you can kind of, as you play and you build up your foundation, you get a more you get a way to kind of about intuiting where stuff is going, how things are moving, and where things, where you can go. And if
Gotcha.
you're always on the lookout for opportunities to find new strategies and take new lines, then when an opportunity presents itself, you're able to take it. If you recognize that you're able to take those pivots and go in and do something unconventional. And it's those unconventional plays, sometimes they don't work. It is a gambit. If you do one of those plays, like you try to take a flank route or something like that, you might just die. And it does happen, but being able to recognize it, assess the risk, see that that is the difference between getting walled out and potentially pushing ahead and winning the game. Again, winning in the grand scheme of things is not important, but in the micro scale, right? Being able to recognize moments like that where you're able to break through the convention of your class, your build, and this is true of every class as well. I'm saying it again, it's true of every class. If you find those opportunities, you can open those doors to yourself, and you can encourage other players to do the same. If everyone is always looking for the opportunity to find their pivot in the event that something is going awry, you not only sidestep the frustration of not being able to play effectively, but you also create opportunities that let your team excel. As long as you're effectively communicating and you see that these opportunities exist to do something that you're not normally doing, and you act on that opportunity, you assess the risk and you say it's worth it to make this push, it's worth it to do this play, it's worth it to, and there's a whole bunch of plays like it, there's like aggressive teleports, stuff like that, or doing flank routes, or switching your kind of your spell priority. There's a bunch of different ways to go about it, but as long as you're on the lookout for it, and I think that's really important, that it's a really good thing to be looking out for, and I think that it's something that it benefits every player to be thinking about. This is, again, it's true of all classes in the in the kingdom scale. Always be looking for those opportunities. When you find those walls, open the door. And wizard can do it, and any class can. Bard has it. Healer has it. Druid. And that's why stuff like equipment, like short sword, like long sword, sword and board, all these, equipment and stuff to spellcasters even is so important. And why it's really good to be looking at how, or like how to build your spell list in a way that maximize functionality, taking those banish splashes, taking those ravage wounding splashes, and kind of building along the edge of that possibility, the production possibilities curve of your spell list. Maximizing that utility afforded to you, because then every single ability you have, every functionality you have is a key, right? Everything that you have access to, every school, every function, everything is a key to open the door. So you can look for those moments, recognize the moments that you can pivot, and then let your spell list, like the spell list will give you the tools that you need, acting upon the foundation of your battle game experience. They go together and create opportunities for you to make big plays that benefit the team. So on a kingdom field, I would say always be looking for those opportunities. And I'm gonna say it again. It's true of every class. Every class can do this. Always be looking out for it. But yeah, sorry, that's the yeah.
All right. Well, we are coming up close on time here, so we're gonna speed run these last couple of questions. Does Crystal Groves have a Paragon Circuit?
We do.
Okay. How can a wizard player stand out to the Crystal Groves Paragon Circuit?
I would say the thing that I always say that I'm looking for, generally, there's a couple aspects that are really important. Good communication, making sure you communicate your spells, and remembering that, sometimes spells get lost on a big field. It gets noisy. Sometimes, spells get lost, and, just, being able to communicate as effectively as you can, playing proactively and all that. For me, a lot of the stuff I focus on is on the theory side. A lot of our other Paragons have eyes on kind of the kind of on-field aspect to it. The thing that I really like to see is that taking that journey on spell list building, finding the places where you can take points from one spell and put it somewhere else in a way that increases the marginal utility of the point. As I've been saying before, the model of the production possibilities frontier, if you imagine across any amount of axes, it could be spell schools, it could be, all sorts of stuff, along any amount of axes that you wish, maximize the utility of all your spell points spent. Find a place on that imaginary curve on the graph, right, of a production possibilities curve. Find the spot for you that is on as close to the line as you can get it. There's no right answer. There's no objective truth. But I think that one of the things that I really love to see with players that are taking the wizard journey is to find that line for themselves and find ways that they can build onto that curve. And then we have really good conversations about list building and stuff.
Okay. What advice would you give someone that's just starting out as a wizard player?
As a wizard player, I would say just starting out, the class is really cool. Oh, a lot of different ways that you'd want to play the game, Wizard is able to accommodate. There's a lot of different ways to play Wizard. As you're leveling, the early levels are always rough. Unfortunately, the leveling system, the way it works is like you don't have access to everything for a while. As you go, I always say, take this opportunity when you're at lower levels. You don't have access to all of your spells yet, but take the opportunity to really get in and find the ways that those spells make value for you. Because once you get to level 6 and you're looking at the top down at all of the spells you have access to, all of a sudden, a lot of spells, you have your contagions, your vampirisms, that kind of get really small from up there. You know what I mean? From the top down, it's hard to see the value in spells like that when you're trying to consider the entire class at once. So if you're just starting out, take your time leveling and find the ways that the spells make value for you, and hang on to that. Remember the tools that using those spells gives you. Our going back to our destroy armor conversation, right? Find the way those spells make value for you, and once you get to level 6 and you have access to everything and the archetypes and everything, you are able to have an informed decision about the spells you include. It gives you time to think about your playstyle. It gives you time to think about stuff you like, the stuff you don't like. And by the time you get to level 6, if you spend time with each of those abilities and really digging into how they work and where they apply, you'll have a really strong foundation to start getting into that kind of, like, if you're looking to get into like that kind of high level, kind of wizard kind of, theory craft and that kind of, technical play. So take the time when you're, and this is, I'm not going to say it again. True of every class. Take your time learning your abilities and spend time with them. And everything that you spend time on is a tool that you can use later. Explore all your options, focus on your tools, and when you get to level 6, find what you like, play what you love, and every single tool that you've spent time learning about on the way will in some way benefit you in a way that starting at level 6, could not do. It's really good.
What is a fictional character that represents how you play wizard?
You know the image of the wizard pondering the orb?
Yes.
Yeah.
That seems correct.
Yeah, I was thinking about this for a while. I was kind of stumped, and then I went over to the Wizard Circle chat, and the first things that happened when our kingdom put that Discord, actually organized the channels and stuff for that Discord, and we had Paragon circles for the first time in that Discord. The very first thing that was posted is we all were like, ponder the orb. So yeah, I think we lean into that. I think that's a core part of the class's identity. I think
so. If you could invent a new spell or ability for the wizard class, ignoring balance, just rule of cool, what's something cool we could add to the game for wizard?
Oh, my answer is gonna sound really lame then. I thought about this one too. Hear me out. Hold person, but it's a sorcery spell.
You want greater hold person?
Imagine Icy Blast, but instead of freezing you, it hold persons you. It fills the function that Icy Blast does in the current format.
Okay.
It sets up a kill combo in Drag Below, which is still a solid Death School payoff.
My power prevents thy moving or something.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to pick a funny incantation, but I mean, we've had some pretty good ones in playtest rules in the past, so I'm sure they'd come up with something.
Sure. Okay. What is your next Amtgard goal? What are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm studying Druid. I've been walking along the Archmage path for the last year or so. So I've done Bard, I've done Wizard. Right now, I'm studying Druid, and then after Druid, I plan on studying Healer. Ultimately, my goal is to write a giant thesis paper about the theory craft of each of them, because so far, each one of those chapters of the journey has taught me something that is unique to that class, yet at the same time feeds into this broader sense of battle gaming theory. I think that each class has something that, each class has something unique to it that also is, is really cool. So I'd really like to take the time to explore all of those different avenues. And spellcasting is the best. I love spellcasting, so I'll be doing that. Hopefully, I kind of want to get more into teaching soon. I would like to try and find more opportunities to talk more about casting spells. I love talking about casting spells. But yeah, I'm just carrying on studying caster classes and having a good time.
Okay. If someone out there in the Crystal Groves wants to get in touch with you and learn more about being a wizard or seeking out an apprenticeship, how would you want them to talk to you about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty available on Discord, and I try to be at every Kingdom event. I haven't really missed one yet. If anyone ever wants to talk about spellcasting ever, anytime, just send me a message. Find me at a Kingdom event. You'll probably hear me on the field before you see me. I do be doing a lot of shouting, but
awesome.
But yeah, I'm always down to talk about spellcasting. Any class, anything. I love talking about battle game theory in general.
Do you have any final advice for the wizards before we go?
Just remember, as with the class, think about your opportunity costs, think about your marginal utilities, think about that imaginary curve and find spell lists that land on it. And in battle games, always be looking for those pivot opportunities to be making plays, doing those pivot points and finding ways to continue to be effective. And most importantly, play to have fun. Play for the love of the game. It's the most important part of Amtgard. It's what keeps us going. It's what makes this community as amazing as it is. Playing for the love of the game, playing it because you enjoy it. Find opportunities to teach. Volunteer where you can. Being a part of the entire experience is so rewarding, and getting to help other people along the journey that you've walked before, or even just starting off on new avenues yourself. Always be looking for ways to enjoy the game.
Yeah. All right. Well, a special thank you to Swordsong, the Many Tails from Crystal Groves for being on the show tonight. It's been a delight talking to you about Wizard. To our viewers, thank you for being here all the way to the end. Subscribe for more battle gaming excellence, and I'll see you in the next video.